So it's an interesting question in the NBA draft. Fit versus who do you think the best player is? And the Cavaliers definitely went for who they thought the best player was, as Darius Garland and Collin Sexton are now on the same team. Everyone's been saying the same thing. How are these two guards going to coexist? Well, before I question all those things, I'm going to try to see why Cleveland would do this. Collin Sexton is a guy who is really a shooting guard in a point guard's body. Like, he needs to work on his playmaking. Got a little better towards the end of the season. I'll acknowledge that. But clearly, the art of predicting what the defense is going to do and spotting the open teammate and getting him the ball and all that stuff, definitely not Collin Sexton's forte. On the flip side, seems like the dude can score. His shooting was, I think, a bit better than people thought it was going to be in his rookie season, and that was with like Kevin Love being out a lot of the time. So it's not even like defenses were really forced to defend a lot of players on this Cavs team. So perhaps it's better to get a guy like Garland, who could be a little bit more of a reliable point guard, you know? Someone who can get teammates the ball and all that. Now, that's not to say that Garland is Ja Morant or anything. I mean, he has his own problems occasionally, too, with sometimes taking a rough shot or doing some of the things that Sexton sometimes does where he doesn't see the open teammate. The difference is Garland is not as bad as Sexton was at times in his rookie season. One of the problems with Garland, though, is we don't know, we haven't seen him in college. So we're going off of high school stuff and just things that scouts are saying, and it would have been nice to see him have a 30-something college game season, if I can use proper English. But even so, this is what the guy projects to be, right? Likes to go ISO, likes to go pick and roll, good finisher, maybe the best ball handler in the draft, potentially already one of the best ball handlers in the NBA. I've seen some people even have some Kyrie Irving comparisons to the guy. So, yeah, it's understandable why the Cavs would want to do this. And the comparison that they used, I think, was Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. Both of those guys are 6'3". Garland and Sexton are listed at 6'2". Yeah, I mean, when you look at those two guys, I guess it does become a little bit more possible that you could have two smaller guards. And it does seem like Sexton cares on defense. The scouts would suggest that he projects to be a good defensive player. Garland, maybe not so much. I do think the Cavs are going to need some strong defenders around them, though. Like, the Blazers dealt with that for a time. Dame and CJ have gotten better defensively, no doubt about it. But even so, Nurkic helps him out, Aminu and Harkless, and Evan Turner, I guess, is not a bad defender, and he's got some size to him. So the Blazers have done a good job of just getting enough big bodies who can make up for Dame and CJ, but even so, those two did make a genuine improvement defensively, getting around screens and just not looking small. Whereas these two, we're just going to have to see if they can do it. I mean, just because some other backcourt manages to do that doesn't mean it's going to happen every time. And even then, Dame and CJ had their times where it was like, ooh, these two kind of suck defensively. So Sexton and Garland could go through the same thing. I mean, sure, there's definitely teams where you could hide maybe one of these guys. Like, let's say Sexton gets good enough to defend point guards, and then you can have Garland be the one who's defending, like, the spot shooters and stuff. That can certainly work against more than a small amount of NBA teams, but of course the goal is to make playoffs and finals and all that, and that's when it gets really difficult to have these sort of dudes. But, you know, step one, you got to be a respectable basketball team first, and offensively speaking, definitely possible with these two. I mean, I guess Garland would be the primary ball handler, and we think that he can hit pull-up jumpers, and he can be kind of a Damian Lillard point guard, right? Where he gets a screen from the big. If the opposing big does not step up in time, Garland could hit a pull-up three. At least he's going to want to do it. We're still going to have to see if he can do these things. And then Sexton can be the guy to play off of that. And I mean, based on Sexton shooting in his rookie season, I think you're going to be totally fine there. And Sexton can beat guys off the dribble too, and he can play in the pick and roll himself. Not as effectively as Garland, we assume, but if that's your secondary ball handler, then I do think that's pretty good. And we should also mention just how dynamic it can be, where one possession, Sexton can bring the ball up, beat his guy off the dribble, and then Garland could get an open three-pointer out of that. Same thing the other way around. It's now two guys that you can throw the ball to in transition, which is cool. Garland, again, he only played 5 college games, but he grabbed 4 rebounds a game in college. Okay, that could be intriguing. And Sexton grabbed 3 boards a game in his rookie season. So if one of these dudes could become an awesome rebounder so that you can get just even easier transition opportunities like that, that would be nice. I guess if Tristan Thompson's actually good this season, that's kind of up and down for him, but if he is and he plays, then he can grab boards and then they can get off on the break. I think Kevin Love at center with these two could be a kind of difficult team to defend. I mean, I don't know if Cleveland is going to be an actual basketball team this year, but maybe instead of being the 29th best offense, they'd be like the 19th if that lineup got enough minutes, especially because you could have some pretty good spacing to round it out with like Chetty and insert other player, whoever they may be. So there's definitely reason to believe this can work. The reasons to not think it can work, besides the obvious stuff of defense, is when we go back to offense, maybe there's a chance that Sexton can't play off the ball, right? Just doesn't really work. Not very good at it. Maybe he's not a great catch and shoot guy. Although his numbers from his rookie season at 44% from 3 would suggest he should be pretty good there. But maybe he just doesn't like not having the ball and that whole thing, right? Kind of like, if we can use the Cavaliers for reference again, the Kyrie Dion Waiters attempt at a backcourt. You know, in theory, these two dynamic ball handlers who can both make shots and be really exciting. In execution, Dion Waiters is Dion Waiters. So maybe Sexton's that, okay? And maybe Garland's that. I don't want to put this all on Sexton. Maybe Garland won't be comfortable with the fact that Sexton is still going to get the ball sometimes. This is not going to be like a Chris Paul, JJ Redick, Clippers situation. So perhaps Garland's not okay with that. There's also a fear that neither one of these dudes is actually a good playmaker. I mean, Garland, again, he projects to be one of those guys who can get like 6 to 7 assists a game, which is nice. But there is some fear that he sometimes is a little too ambitious with going for a highlight play rather than the simple one. And, you know, we all know about Sexton's problems at times when it came to passing. So, yeah, it's a little bit of a risk. But once you get past, like, in this draft, the 3rd pick, there's going to be risk involved. And even then, you can find criticism of Ja and RJ on the internet. So, pretty much after Zion, there's a chance it's not going to go that great. But Cleveland definitely swung for the fences here. I mean, if you compare this to any other guy they could have selected at number 5, right? So, anybody outside of the top 3 obvious ones, and then DeAndre Hunter. So that could have been Kobe White. Yeah, bigger dude, but maybe not as dynamic as Garland. So perhaps his ceiling isn't as high. Culver, I would say Garland's ceiling is higher than Culver's, but you would have the size and that sort of thing. Yeah, I think the Cavs decided to not play it safe, and I can admire that for a team that has been so bad without LeBron James on their team. So, yeah, and if worse comes to worse, like maybe one of these dudes is good and the other one's kind of meh, you can just trade the other one, because teams will definitely take a guard who can do stuff on a rookie contract. So, yeah, Darius Garland, Collin Sexton. I will say this. I think depending on which night you tune into this team, sometimes it might look really bad with these two, where they're just turning the ball over like crazy and just trying way too many highlight plays. And then there are other games where defenses are going to be like, what the hell is going on? There's these two like 6-foot dudes who are just killing us on every possession. So could be fun, could be frustrating, and we'll have to see what that ends up being in a couple years.